Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, weekly show brought to you by our show partner, Join Cycling. The good weather is here. I was just out for 2 hours. You can do running, you can do cycling, you can do hiking, you can put it in. I mean, Join even prescribes you strength workouts as well. It's supposed to adapt to you and your lifestyle, whatever way you're enjoying the spring that seems to have finally sprung here. We're going to get into Catalunya, quick recap, Settimana, Coppi, Bartali, Settimana Internazionale, Coppi, Bartali, Tour of Hellas preview. Benji doesn't want to do it. I said we had to, as well as Dwars Dour preview, slightly bigger race. Paris Camembert, and we got to do the cheese race, Benji. So there's also some other news. Just announced. Luckily, we waited till this afternoon. Announced this morning, maybe the most controversial news about Tour de France wildcards.
We'll get to that later, though. We got to start with the recaps first. And we've done a couple of stages in the Brugge de Ponne and E3 recaps already when it comes to Catalunya. So the two stages that we still have to talk about is stage 6 and 7. But basically, going into stage 6, we had a GC where Ayuso was first with a second on Roglic after we had a 1-1 in the mountain stages, basically. And stage 6 was supposed to be a mountain stage with a massive climb in the middle called the Pradel, but also Gerald, a finish, which was also pretty prominent. So 3 climbs in total was meant to be, lots of altitude meters, and boom, that did not happen. Initially, Col de Pradel was taken out due to extreme wind. That was the day before. Then the morning of the race, all the climbs were set to be removed. So suddenly we had a very different race, and that's actually low-key funny in a way, where we saw Matthew Brennan abandon from the Volta Catalunya.
It wasn't funny.
Despite being in the points jersey. And a few minutes after the announcement of Brennan leaving the race, the stage turns into a versatile sprint stage.
Then they make it a 25k uphill sprint. It's like he could have finished the stage. Probably still had to do some training and then get the car back to Andorra an hour and a half up the road. Oh my god! But yeah, it would turn into a bit of a farce that stage. The organisers weren't happy in the end. To be honest, like the wind did die down, but really it was crazy. Like I'm not far from there, and up here it was legit blizzard. Like Toby made me go into the mountains and trees. It wasn't safe. So anyone direct your abuse to Toby via email at tobycavoodle@lanternerouge.com.
There's no CPA for mountain runners like yourself?
Toby doesn't give a shit what the weather is. He has to be walked for an hour and a half minimum per day. But yeah, the weather was really like the wind. If you would have had something like in the Giro where they put up the finish on Gerald and it would have blown over, and it's not safe for the staff, fans, or riders. So it's a shame how it happened, but that's the reality, even if the wind did die down. And Simmons won. The uphill sprint, DSM, Picnic Post and L were sort of there or thereabouts. Bittner just came a bit too late. And then the next stage, Roglic started the stage 1 second behind Ayuso in GC. He also needed to go 1 second ahead because on stage countbacks, he was behind Ayuso, so he couldn't be on the same time. And so there was then two intermediate sprints before they entered the Barcelona circuit, which is very punchy. We've seen Remco and Roglic go away there together. We've seen Simon Philip Yates win there. But also versatile sprinters like a Baggioli type operator, Dorian Godon, who's here indeed, could do well in a group of 15 sprint. And first sprint, Bora Masterclass. They roll Ayuso not only by a second, but Roglic has Dens behind him taking a second. They go 1 second ahead of Ayuso. Flip the script then. UAE, the next sprint, control the break. So the sprint's in play. There's a left-hand corner. Ayuso, I personally think it was over the line, what he did. And he basically, Bora were about to do the same thing. Dens was ahead of Roglic into the corner. Ayuso jumped in and just full-shouldered Roglic off Dens' wheel and was basically like, if you don't brake, we're both crashing. That's what he did. And Roglic braked because he's also like, okay, I don't care that much. And Ayuso then takes a second back on Roglic, 2 seconds, sorry, because he gets ahead of Dens. And then Roglic on the circuit, Bora have to control the brake to put the bonies in play for the win. So quite exciting, actually.
Very exciting. And we do see an active Bora team doing that. And we do see UAE still having numbers. We see Ayuso there with the likes of Adam Yates there, with Soler there. Soler very active in this stage, but something happened in this stage that I didn't expect. We saw Roglic attacking early. I thought, okay, maybe they'll control the breakaway and Roglic will go for the final sprint in the finish there, because you'd argue that on paper on a flat sprint, perhaps based on the mountain stages as well, that Roglic has the better sprint here, because the first mountain stage that Ayuso won, I still think Roglic was the better, but he just bottled the last corner. So on paper, Roglic would win that sprint out of the two of them. Now he decided not to do that. Roglic attacked with, I think on the third last Montjuic with about 21 kilometers to go, and we saw Bernal basically sitting in second wheel and Ayuso in third wheel. And to be honest, Ayuso had a mechanical in the legs at that point. Like, it wasn't happening. He did not look good even before the attack.
Yeah, he was. You can talk about positioning. You can talk about the lack of team maybe around him for the final circuits. But the reality is, when it came to mano a mano, Roglic is way stronger. And it's kind of bittersweet watching Roglic ride like this, Benji. Because I then think, what if Roglic had been like behind on GC going into Plateau de Glières in the 2020 Tour de France? Like,
yeah.
I mean, then probably... Yeah, when he's forced to attack, Roglic can do things that also Remco and Pogacar have done sometimes. So, like, this is impressive solo.
Yes, but we've also seen moments where Roglic was forced to attack or chose to attack early, especially Paris-Nice, for example, in the final stage, where he chose to go early unnecessarily, actually, and he ends up imploding kind of in the final. So we've seen both in two different ways. So I do like seeing the Roglic attack, because I like seeing races open up early, and especially because this was not the type of solo where I was like, okay, he's gone, race is over. There were moments where the gap stayed on 15 seconds where I was like, okay, there's a chance Roglic gets caught here if the group behind finds a way to work together. But to be honest, Ayuso wasn't good enough for stuff like that to happen in the first place. And then it's looking at other guys like Van Eetveld, who was very active on this parkour, trying to get ahead of that second group as well to stay ahead. And he can't close Roglic either. So at the end of the day, Roglic finishes and wins in Montjuic. No, that's not the finish name, right?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, in the Barcelona on the Olympic circuit. But you're right in that if other teams had decided to chase for whatever reason, he actually was very catchable and could have been caught. Yeah. Like De Plus and Van Eetveld were 5 to 7 seconds behind him at the top of the last circuit. It was one of those few occasions where really nobody blinked. They were like, Ayuso's problem. Ayuso got completely hung out to dry, and they just actually started smelling blood in the water and attacking Ayuso, which was, it was good to see that, like, Ayuso didn't get bailed out by a team wanting to defend. I don't even know. So yeah, Roglic wins GC by 28 seconds ahead of Ayuso on the last stage. Very exciting final stage, I must say. Most memorable one I can remember in Barcelona. Mas third, Landa fourth. Roglic keeps upsetting the Spaniards in Spain. Martinez fifth. I gotta say, I didn't see him all race, but that's a damn good result. De Plus sixth, Bernal seventh, Van Eetveld eighth, Simon Philip Yates ninth, and Richard Carapaz 10th. And that's a lot of the Giro riders. What did we learn for the Giro, Benji?
Well, to be honest, based on this week, we saw multiple mountain finishes where it was super close. It was super close on both the ones we did see, and it was a sprint at the top. That being said, they were not brutal multi-mountain stages either. So I'm looking at these as Unipuerto or just more than a Unipuerto mountain stage, where I would favor Roglic. But then again, to be honest, his sprint looked super impressive, and on the final stage as well, where the fatigue of every single consecutive hill comes in, Roglic was also simply a lot stronger than Ayuso. So Primož Roglic is the favorite for the Giro. That's as simple as that. But the one thing that is still in question for me is that I have not seen Roglic on brutal multi-mountain stages, which there are not many of in the Giro. In the final week, there's maybe 3 maximum, where you could argue that it's a stage that could be made brutal by a team if they put everything in it. Now, I would argue that I'm also not sure if Ayuso is better than Roglic on those stages.
Me either. Like, Roglic looked better. Roglic also had, like, Pellizzari was good, but team wasn't that good this week. In the Giro, he's got Hindley, Daniel Felipe Martinez, others who trotting maybe in better shape than he was here.
Wandal.
Yep. Foldiger, Engelhardt, he's got them all. Like, Roglic looks good. Roglic looks good. That doesn't mean that on Fenestra he hasn't crashed before and has a massive wobble.
Yeah.
Could happen. But to me, if I'm Bora and Roglic, I'm very happy with how this week went, to be honest.
I think so as well.
He looks good.
Final question about Volta Catalunya, though. Matthew Brennan leaves the race before stage 6. I know you were sad about that, but when it comes to the future of Matthew Brennan, like, we've spoken about him as a rider a couple of times already, spoken about him when it comes to his victory in GP de Nain. I kind of feel like, obviously you might know more about this, so I'm the one to speculate here, which is fun. I am of the opinion that you don't pull him out of Catalunya 2 days early just for rest if you don't have a follow-up plan to that. And I don't see Dwars door Vlaanderen necessarily. Perhaps that's a possibility, especially now that Koi's gone. Actually, it might become a possibility.
Yeah, and Dwars door Vlaanderen they made easier this year.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about it later. So maybe Dwars. RVV, I don't necessarily believe in.
No.
But their tweet about it said, Visma Leasebike's tweet about him leaving the race said, Matthew Brennan, we're taking him out for extra rest. For me, extra rest sounds that it was definitely not initially the plan to send him to Dwars door Vlaanderen because Koi would be there. Maybe with Koi crashing and breaking a collarbone, that might change. But extra rest to me sounds extra rest before Roubaix.
Because, Robert de Groot said it publicly. He's Matthew's coach and he's head of development. Visma, the development team and development. Yeah, you can't send him to Circuit des Ardennes now. Like that's because originally the plan, because Paul Magnier also last year, very young, versatile sprinter. Paul Magnier did a mixed schedule where they get opportunities in a variety of level of races to see where they're at. And Magnier went in Tour of Oman. Magnier also did the Baby Giro, and he also did some small races. And then now Magnier's on the trajectory. Yeah, with Brennan, you cannot win Denain. Catalunya could have won 4 Catalunya stages. And then send him to Circuit des Ardennes. You cannot do it. So, not in this shape. So, yeah, he'll be put in World Tour races or bigger races than that.
The following races were mentioned already. Volta Limburg, which we might talk about later, depending on whether Luke has smuggled it into our notes for today. Tour de Romandie and Tour of Norway. I think Tour de Romandie is a very nice one because we've always spoken about Tour de Romandie being very good for versatile sprinters. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at part of this year very closely.
It's
but
a classic Romandie parcours, yeah.
Okay, I would guess that there's opportunities for a man like Matthew Brennan in there, and who knows, he might take out another World Tour win there. So he doesn't have the need to do it, but it's a nice opportunity to be able to fight for it and gain experience in those World Tour races that he's shown to be competent enough at. And at the age of 19, the pressure might not be there, but the opportunity's there. That makes sense?
Yeah, but what I always think about riders is don't assume that you'll be like this when you're 29 or 30. That it's going to be when it's so easy to win at World Tour level straight away. You think, it'll just continue like this for 10 years. And of course, you don't want to flog a rider with 80 race days and loads of travel. Remember, he had to travel to Australia, and he's 19, so there's also that element to it as well. But yeah, strike while the iron's hot. Very quickly you can become
washed.
Sort of, no, more like you're put on a schedule with altitude camps for major goals where, you can't just stack wins as easily anymore.
And pressure might come with that. And as a consequence, maybe more of a mental burden than he's under right now.
Yeah, any wins a bonus. I mean, any half decent results a bonus. But Romandie opens with a 3.5 kilometer hilly prologue. And it's a classic. It's got Tion 2000 for Lipovitz to win, I would dare say, before the Giro. We've done Catalunya, Coppi Bartali, Caleb Ewan Benji. This is maybe the story of Coppi Bartali. Brings a full train here, and it's flat. First stage, absolutely flat. Magnus Sheffield, Ben Swift do a nuclear lead out for for Ewan, and he makes it look like it's the HTC High Road lead out for Cavendish. They put everyone on bike lengths. Okay, it's against nobody. Let's not overreact, Benji. The most interesting thing I want to pick up from this is Ineos, and they got a new sprint coach, the Dutch track guy. Luke will correct me if I'm wrong with his name, Mehdi Cordy.
Yes.
They put him back on his 2016 Green Edge sprint position, where he's completely over the stem, like old Cav style, whereas Lotto, he sprinted more upright. That was the most interesting part to me.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't look at it so closely. I just saw him dust a couple of Italian Conti sprinters, and I was like, okay, Caleb Ewan's back, send him to the Tour de France. But on a serious note, he wins the stage at Coppi Bartali. What does this mean for a Caleb Ewan? Because I'm not saying like, okay, send him to a World Tour schedule right now, or are we saying that because Ineos doesn't necessarily have a sprinter in the first place for those type of races? So is there only guy for that?
I just think it's interesting that they built a train, they've drilled it, they've focused on it. It just looks like a change to me, and it's a win. Yeah, it's beating up children, but still you got to win it, you know? It's still a professional race. You still got to go out there and do it. I also think it's smarter to do it this way than to then be like, okay, you just go to the Giro and then you win there. That'll be where you first win this year. That's not how it works.
It's good to like training wheel into the season. That makes sense?
Yes.
Anyway, what happened on stage 2? I saw the final climb, because I was like, I'm not going to watch an entire stage of Coppi Bartali. That's Patrick's job. And I saw Paul double attack early. What happened afterwards?
Paul double was cooking. He was on the triple. He was basically attacked out of the group. He lost time. No, he hadn't lost time. It was the hardest uphill finish of the week. It was like a really narrow, like pave last 500 meters where it'd be hard to time your sprint, and he doesn't have a sprint. He's a climber on Jaco, came from Polti last year, and he attacked early because he wasn't the UAE. Talit had no one to chase except for Hrat. UAE were rolling attacks. They didn't know, is it Arietta? I think Jay Vine had crashed. And so Micah, Arietta, and Covey, they're not going to work for each other. They rolled attacks. And then Ineos also didn't have, like, Sheffield was there, but he's isolated. Double wins, great move. And then there's a sprint behind. Jarno Widar, very, very explosive. He dusts Ben Tullett and Diego Ulisi on finishes that those two are very good on to win, like, the sprint behind. And Sheffield's put on 3 seconds. So that was, like, this whole race about bonus seconds. Stage 3, Jay Vine won solo because he attacked strongly. These are all hilly circuits in the rain. It was, like, shitty weather for the rest of the race. Sheffield won the sprint behind. And then I think... I'm pretty sure Widar and Double got cooked on the hill circuits in the cold. Like, a lot of guys just couldn't cope with the cold. That was a really hard stage. And then the 4th stage was the last hard stage, and Ben Tullett attacked all out on the penultimate hill. Sheffield was marking him pretty comfortably, I would say. Sheffield, who of course won in Paris-Nice on the final day, is in good shape. And then he crashed following Tullett on the descent, and Tullett won the stage. Took the bonies as well, of course, and a gap, and went into the GC lead.
Where did Vine go? Because he lost 11 minutes on that stage. I didn't watch that stage, so I can't even lie about that. I've got no clue what happened to Vine.
Oh, but he was out of GC after stage 2, so he was just chilling. If he couldn't win the stage, he was chilling, just helping Covey or whoever.
That makes a lot of sense then.
Yeah. And then the next stage, he won in the same fashion he won the first stage. So it's true. That's like... Some people try to stay in GC, and then when they go on a break, they wonder why they get closed down. If you're strong and you're out of GC, get yourself out of GC Leonard Kamner style, then no one chases you. Also, he's stronger than everyone here half the time.
Yeah, but when it comes to Jay Vine here, don't you have the... Obviously, in stage 2, he was already out of GC, you said. But on stage 3 and 5, he looked strong enough to win GC, no?
I think he crashed stage 2.
Okay, that makes sense then. In the end, Ben Tullett wins GC. The Sabre of Sevenoaks? No, the Sevenoaks Sabre. I need to do it in the correct order. Respect the man. We've seen him be good throughout most of the season now. Even in the likes of Classica Cayenne, he was strong in the Wout van Aert. Let's be honest about it. But then again, Carlos Canal was as well. And in a lot of races, he's been very strong for Visma Lease bike throughout this year now. I don't know where this goes when it comes to Bentola. I actually don't know what his schedule is throughout the season. We've got Itzulia Basque Country, Amstel Gold Race, Flesch, Liège, and La Vuelta. I really like to see, like, Bentola back in the day, when he rode for Alpecin, to me, he always looked like this dude that is a pure Hill Classic specialist. And he probably is that as well right now. But his TT has gotten a lot better over the years. As he went to Ineos and there it got better, in my opinion. Is he ever going to be a GC rider? As in proper GC races, not Coppi Bartali?
Well, definitely in 1 week. Definitely in 1 week. Because, yeah, as you say, the TT is twice fifth in the Giro in the time trials, I believe. Maybe I made that stat up.
We'll pretend it's true.
And then, but yeah, definitely for 1 week because he can take bonus seconds. And yeah, he's like 22 years old or something. So I don't know for Grand Tours. He's got to get some more under his belt. And then we'll see. But you're right. It's certainly the Hill Classics is where I think he's very, very strong, and also where Visma have lacked the last 2 years. So yeah, it's a good fit. Otherwise, for Coppi, I was impressed by Igor Arrieta, who doesn't get his own chances very much on UAE, and he comes second, third on GC. He's usually a domestique, and he goes under the radar. He's been in the generation of Rodriguez and Ayuso, and he comes third here. That's not easy. It's a hard race. And Mark Donovan on Q365. So Q365 are doing really, really well. Still, not just with Pidcock, but with Donovan, De La Cruz, Moschetti. Actually, the whole team has lifted itself, I would say. And then, Sheffield probably equal strongest in the race, but the crashing is a problem. He crashed twice on the same descent after he crashed with Tullet. So,
well then.
then you can't win GC. Otherwise,
Rangel.
I didn't watch this, Benji. What the fuck?
I watched the last kilometer, so I can talk about the last kilometer. Fredheim was in the breakaway for UNOX for a lot of the day, or in the attack at least for a lot of the day. Not sure it was the early breakaway. And he does a lead out still at the end of the race for Blickra, who's actually been pretty consistent throughout the season. Ellen Blickra wins ahead of, pretty sure it was Kokar and maybe Gerben Thijssen for Intermarché. So, nice victory for Blickra. UNOX also keeps on a winning mood throughout the season. Did you know that Christoph is one of 3 riders that can realistically reach 100 victories this season in the men's peloton?
100, wow. And he's still, he can do it. If they send him to the right races, he can do. I mean, he's 4th in Conveybel. You're good enough to win. 3 to go. And then he says, I think he's going to retire after 100. That's his goal. Yeah. So, yeah, good on him. But yeah, UNOX also, all these Pro Conti teams are lifted a level. Like, UNOX have been good. Johannesson brothers are good. Blicker has been good all year. Yeah, they're doing well.
On the topic of pro teams, let's talk about the news. We've got Tour de France 2025 wildcards announced, and there's been a bit of drama about this last couple of weeks, and we've spoken about this, I think, last week in the weekly as well, that basically RCS and other Grand Tour organizers had asked the UCI, in cooperation with a certain set of teams, to get an extra wildcard for Grand Tours, is the way I feel about the situation. And we had an announcement this morning that the UCI has decided to allow Grand Tours to give that additional wildcard. So instead of 4 teams to be added next to the World Tour teams, there'd be 5 teams. Of those 5 teams, 2 of them have the usual automatic wildcard. So based on the year before, UCI points-wise, if you were the 2 best pro teams the season before, in terms of UCI points, you would automatically get wildcards for Grand Tours the next season. And that is what this story is about. 2 of those automatic ones, plus now 3 instead of 2, free to give wildcards by the organizers of the Grand Tour. And the Tour de France has used that opportunity to give the automatic wildcards to Lotto and Israel Premier Tech because, well, they have no choice. They have to give it to them on sports merit of their UCI points last season. And the free to give wildcards to Total Energy, Tudor, and UNOX. Question. This comes forward. We've gone through the whole discussion of whether we think this is the right thing or not. Okay? First of all, I think having an extra team reduces safety. There's an argument to be made there. So this is prioritizing politics instead of safety by the UCI. But on top of that, it seems like teams also wanted this to happen. So does that also mean that teams are prioritizing their self-interest over safety?
how I can't believe like for Plugger has said it's like a problem, but for Plugger it doesn't really matter. Like how are the Israel and Lotto managers not pissed or whoever? Like they have to battle for points and earn the right to go to these races. And then, because Tudor signed Julian Alaphilippe, they essentially buy their way into the Tour de France. That's how it is, right?
Yeah, that's basically how it is.
What the fuck?
That's not right. Especially for me, because it's done right now after the deed is done. Teams fought for these automatic wildcards throughout the 2024 season.
Yeah.
So how can you?
They made race decisions. They spent money to go to races they probably didn't want to go to.
Yeah. And after the fact, the UCI decides, in cooperation with race organizers, etc., to let an extra wildcard in for a team that didn't earn this on sports merit. That's unfair for the teams that did go for it while the actual competition went on. If you have a competition, you can't change the rules after the competition is done just to make one of the teams that lost feel better.
Oh, because they got a French rider who's like, got a big name. Like, come on.
I think it's unfair.
It's really unfair.
It's probably fun for the race to see Alaphilippe. I'll enjoy that.
Sure.
I hate the fact that it reduces safety, but favors politics and money in a sport where right now at this moment, it should go the opposite direction, especially after what happened in Zurich again. That should have been the catalyst to a lot of change in this sport, and I feel like it's dimmed down again. Every single time we have an athlete die in this sport, there's a week or 2 weeks where everybody's like, oh, we need to change the sport. And 2 months later, it's as if every part of the governing body of this sport has completely forgotten about that.
Well, yeah, that is true. So yeah, I mean, as you said, when Alaphilippe attacks in the breakaway, it'll be exciting, of course. But I am surprised more teams aren't kind of like, this is unfair because the rules got. If you want to do it for the next cycle, that's fine. If you want to say for even 2027, okay, so everybody knows for 2026 it's 3 wild cards. So because the value of fighting for it becomes much less. Well, not for Israel and Lotto still have to fight for those wild cards because they don't have a flashy French rider where they'll get the discretionary extra invite.
Does this not also give an advantage that they didn't deserve to the team of Tudor for the next cycle? Because they can now compete in a Grand Tour that might give more UCI points than their original calendar plans? Or is that too far-fetched?
I mean, I don't think so, mainly because unless they do really, really well, probably if they can't, they would have made more points elsewhere, focusing on other races with Alaphilippe. It's more that's where all the economic benefit is if you can go to the Tour de France. So now Cancellara can go to his sponsors or new sponsors and say, we have Tour de France invites. Pay, so we are a more valuable team to sponsor. So Luke's just sent me something from Velaflitz. Luke says, quoting Luke from Velaflitz, so double Dutch, don't quote me on it. Remarkably, the subject was supported by the AIGCP, the Association of Professional Teams. This, while the joint world teams, I don't know what the joint world teams means, were against the extra wildcard. It is said that the objections of the supporters were ignored by the AIGCP voting member. That's Velaflitz. So probably I doubt there is, a lot of teams happy about this.
It's a joint world team. World teams is a World Tour team. So joint world teams sounds like a group of World Tour teams. So the World Tour teams were against the extra wildcard. But the AIGCP, which is basically an organization of the World Tour teams, right?
Yep.
Has, I think, Copeland as the head of the AIGCP, and he would have made a different decision than the majority of the teams in the group?
I don't know.
That can't be a very popular decision if true.
I don't know. But go check out the Velaflitz article.
We gave our opinion. That's all we have to do here.
Before we get into the other news, we'll talk about our show partner, Join Cycling. Spring is sprung. As I said, it's here, and there's no better time than to get on the bike and enjoy the good weather. And with Join's training plans, it can fit whatever your fitness level is, whether you're doing 4 hours, 3 hours a week, all the way up to 25 hours a week, which actually I know some of you do. Some of you also have jobs and do that, which is like incredible. I wish I had that discipline. I'm not that person. I don't have an endurance sport background. I would say I have limited talent. I should have been a cricket player. I was a good cricket player. I can talk about that for a long time. Benji doesn't want me to talk about cricket. But still.
What's a cricket?
Exactly. With Join,
chirp.
With a modicum of training, without overtraining, with some stability and consistency, I feel like I'm often one of the fittest in an average bunch of riders. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with where I am compared to 3 years ago before Join entered the LRCP world and my world, thanks to Luke. So if you want to check it out, to just try 1 month. You get a free trial for 1 month. Just try it out. You can download the app go through the link down below in the show notes and try it out and see if it works for you. Pick a training plan and availability that works for you. And I'm sure the data shows you will get the rewards from it. Thanks to Join Cycling for supporting us and being our show partner for the weekly show and the year. Okay.
Next topic. Jonas Vingegaard crashed in Paris. We've spoken about that crash numerous times. I already kind of ranted about that crash originally in the podcast of Paris itself in the daily recap, that he crashed. He had visible blood on his face. Campenaerts came out after the race and said that Jonas told him that he was dizzy and stated that Jonas didn't seem very lucid. And I quote. So based on that, I gave my opinion that day. Sounds like he has a concussion. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not sure if he had that, is what I said back then. Turns out he did have a concussion. Vingegaard discussed that in BT, which I think is Danish media, and stated that he stayed off the bike for a couple of days, maybe 9 days or something, if I recall correctly, because of a concussion. I have my opinion on this because, first of all, he has blood on his face, which automatically shouts, okay, you should check for a concussion test. I wasn't in the field that day. I know I'm a boots on the ground journalist in the Flemish Classics, even though I live in the UK. Apparently, I'm always in the Moeren. I was not present in Paris, but I assume from the fact that he then tells Victor that he's dizzy and didn't seem very lucid, then he might not have had a concussion test in the race. But apparently he was checked by the medical car. Is that because he had blood flowing from his head and got a band-aid over it? I don't know. I don't know if this man got a concussion test in the race or not. But I want to bring it to another thing first before I talk about the concussion. Victor also said he couldn't use his left brake anymore because of the pain. In my opinion, by the way, right now there's no rule forcing riders to stop if they physically can't use their brakes. If the brakes themselves aren't working, then the rider has to stop. But if your hands aren't working, a rider apparently doesn't have to stop. So I think that's a mistake in the rules of the sport. But then again, how are you going to enforce that? Because by the time you realize that someone's hands aren't working, they're in the ditch because they couldn't brake. Now, I do think that's something that needs to change. When it comes to concussion topic of Vingegaard, my opinion is simple. He should have had a concussion test. I don't know if he did. And as a consequence of that concussion test, it should have probably been clear that he shouldn't have continued the race. I'm not going to go out and say I blame Victor Campenaerts in this situation of Victor was told that Jonas was dizzy. It's easy to say that in Victor's place, I would have told the team that they should have taken Jonas out of the race. That's easy to say. I'd like to say that right now. I don't know that. I don't know if the team car knew that Jonas was dizzy. But if they knew, they should have taken him out of the race directly.
Yeah, I mean, you got
I think
checked
that's every
out.
angle.
Yeah, because the Tour de France is the big goal of the year. And yeah, especially without being able to brake with your left hand, which I believe is the front brake for Europeans. Yeah, which is the main brake.
Every time I go from Belgium to the UK and switch between my European and my UK bike, I almost kill myself the first ride because I take the brakes wrong.
You're right. It's a shit situation, Benji, because there's like the two competing things. There's the health of the rider, doing a proper assessment, and then the reality that the race doesn't stop. And we have this tension in cycling where there is the incentive that you just get back on your bike, ride for a bit, see how you go. he did get assessed by the doctor.
I agree with you that there's two sides to the story, but in this case, it's at the start of a Paris stage. So at the start of Paris stage,
true, the race isn't on.
There's no such urgency, and maybe just beaten into riders like a drum that they should be back on the bike and get back to the peloton as soon as possible. And I don't like the reaction of Jonas should have known better, because the adrenaline of crashing, having a potential concussion, you can easily jump back on the bike without a concussion test as a consequence of that. It should not be on the rider. It should be on two things. On the team car to do so. So if the team car was aware that he felt dizzy or something like that, or had any symptoms of concussion, then they should have done a concussion test. Like you said, medical car checked him. So I don't know if that happened or not. But secondly, I would also say that the benefit here, the problem here is that there's also no broadcast. It's based on pre-race pictures that I'm discussing, the scar, the thing on his head, the blood on his head, etc. Which means in races where, for example, Jonas Vingegaard or Pogacar, for example, even Pogacar, Strade, people were talking about that as an example. That's a different moment in the race. That's in the final. There, a rider is more likely to jump back on the bike because he's in the running for the race. Should it be the case like that? Probably not for the health of the rider, but at the end of the day, that's a thing in the sport that is hard to change. But let's say something happens while the broadcast is on. There's also a responsibility on a lot of other stakeholders than the team car, UCI people included, UCI commissaires, whatever, watch UCI jury van, whatever it's called, because they've got broadcast images. In the rules, they are literally told to tell Visma to let them to stop Jonas to do a proper concussion test. There's no broadcast here, so that doesn't come into play. But my overall point is that the sport needs to take concussions more seriously, because right now it's a joke.
Well, yeah, and the reality is we talk about Vingegaard, but probably some miscellaneous domestique every race.
Strade crash.
Hits his head, and no one cares either.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get paid millions of euros a year, and he's out of contract. So yeah, you're right. Like there's concussions, and yeah, there's the situation with Vingegaard, and they're not able to do Catalunya. It's definitely not the start of spring that he would have hoped for, or the team would have hoped for, or maybe the end of spring rather. So yeah, it's just not an ideal outcome at all.
Yeah, that's for sure. Not an ideal outcome for another rider as well when it comes to the preseason or classic season. Arnaud Delis is skipping Dwars door Vlaanderen and the Tour of Flanders. We've already kind of discussed the Arnaud Delis story in yesterday's podcast in Gent-Wevelgem. So if you want to have our opinion on that, in short summary, it seems like it seems like it's not just pressure. At a certain point this year, I was like, okay, it must be pressure on Arnaud Delis. Last year, similar thing. Lyme disease was then a story as well last year. This year, there's now rumors of homesick, that he's not with his cows enough in the offseason, stuff like that. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be, if I had to guess, a combination of physical and mental, that he's struggling right now. And I hope that he sees the other side of the coin after a bit of rest throughout Dwars door Vlaanderen and Tour of Flanders, because Arnaud Delis at his best is an amazing rider. And I would like to see that again. As simple as that.
Yeah, he's clearly something was wrong. Like we discussed in the Gent-Wevelgem recap, it's not normal for him that he gets dropped in the middle of an echelon when he's already there. This is the guy last year who would bridge between echelons himself. Smart, no. Incredibly strong, yes, in previous years. So clearly there's something up. And we also have the news of, I hope they send him to like literally the most, people laughed at Caleb Ewan's schedule.
Yeah.
Laugh at Matthew Brennan doing the French races. But they should send him to the Mickiest of Mickey Mouse races to get the confidence back.
The Grand Prix de Lillière, the Ville, the whatever. Matthew Brennan, 2 days before that race happened, he didn't even know that existed. I bet you.
I knew. Yeah, but
it was already planned from October.
Who's to say that seeing the ball go in the net, it didn't help for the other races?
Yeah.
And so for Delis, I think he just needs to pick me up. And maybe it's much more serious than I'm saying, but yeah, I think I don't think his talent's just left him.
Is it the problem that Lotto doesn't have the same amount of pick-me-up races that a Visma has in the example of Brennan then, where Lotto's pick-me-up races are Le Saman, Nokere Koerse, GP de Na, which is high level.
But they're not, they're serious races for them. They don't go to Le Saman like, oh, let's just let the young lads have a go today. They want to win those races because they're part of the Belgian Cup, and they Lotto sponsor the company a lot of these races. I'm literally saying that he should do
Circuit
des Ardennes with the dev team.
Really?
Why not?
I don't know. I'd like to see it result in him being happy, but maybe it's a bit embarrassing for him to show up with a dev team at a race that is much lower than his usual races?
He's not in bad shape. He's ninth in the Na, winning the bunch sprint behind. I don't know. They'll know better than us. But it's a shame that he's out. Fabio Jakobsen, he's temporarily retired as well now. He's had iliac artery issues, and so he's stepping away. I think he's having surgery on it. And then no timeline on his return. But Picnic are obviously supporting him in that. Good. So that's another shame. It's clearly something was wrong with Jakobsen as well.
Yeah.
And they found the answer. And he's temporarily, he said he had a flow restriction in the iliac arteries. Well, that's what PCS says at least.
I feel like we've seen that injury so many times in cycling these days. I've once asked on Twitter, I think a couple of weeks or months ago, what the connection is, and it's because of it's said to be because of the position on the bike that it results in that being a very consistent injury in the sport of cycling, which that's unfortunately a consequence of the sport that the riders are putting through. Controversial take. I don't know if this is controversial. Is there a possibility that, I'm not saying this is the case for Jakobsen, but that a lot more riders have this, and maybe not in a serious way yet, and that we will find that out when they perhaps have a period of not performing necessarily and are looking for a cause for that?
I reckon if you really went looking for it, it'd be in way more cyclists than you think. And either they can perform with it, or their level hasn't changed so significantly that they're really searching for a medical explanation. With Fabio, his level was so bad, they were like, there must be a medical explanation, and now they found one.
Anyway, let's hope he recovers and finds his old form back relatively.
Yeah, Van Anrooy had surgery for this. Did Van Vleuten have surgery for this?
Yes.
She did? Okay.
Vos, no?
One of the two. Yeah, one of the two. I shouldn't confuse the two. Let's talk about then races coming up. Dwaalsdorf Lanterne is on Wednesday. It's World Tour for men. .pro for women. So it's obligatory for the World Tour teams for the men to do. We don't have Pedersen, Pogacar, or Van der Poel. We do have Jasper Philipsen, Lawrence Pithy, the whole Ineos stacked squad, Sans Ganna, Jorgensen, Van Aert, Bini, as well as sprinters, like I said, Philipsen, Milan, Molano. I think Narvaez is back in the fold, Merlier. And the route, Benji, is a little bit easier this year. I think it's not been a sprint the last few years, but I really think, well, for Jasper Philipsen, he absolutely can make this final.
Yeah, I agree. It's an easier parcours. When you compare the two parcours next to each other, I'm trying to compare both of them, and there's only, I'm looking at the differences between the two. The Kortekeer was taken out between the two first editions of the Knokteberg in the route, so that is seemingly gone, where now the Maria Borrestraat is, which was also there last year, but one of the climbs was taken out there. Then Berg ten Houten is not followed by Canarieberg anymore, so Canarieberg is gone. That's two hills that are out. And then after the next Knokteberg, basically the last Knokteberg in the race, with about 50-ish kilometers to go, you've got the Houton, which is the same, Maria Borrestraat the same, and you've got the La Deuze climb instead of the Eikenberg, which I think the La Deuze is easier and not cobbled. So let's say 2.5 climbs were taken out, and that's it. 2.5 climbs were taken out throughout the parcours. I think that does make a difference. I still believe that Berg ten Houten will be an important moment. Not as important as last year, perhaps, because, well, You had literally the Canadi back just after that. So there was a real follow-up of things there, which also makes that a shorter effort for sprinters to get over. It's not 2 climbs in a row you have to get over. It's 1, Bercht and Houte. So I agree that it's more likely to be a sprint this year, and especially Jasper Philipsen should definitely be able to survive. But you know my take on this race? It should not be a Volta race. I'm sorry. This is a ChatGPT Belgian race.
Yeah, you're right. It should be .pro, like Brabantse Pijl is before Amstel. And I was incorrect. Pedersen is on the provisional for Little Trek. I think Philipsen does make a group of 10 or 12, but I actually think he gets worked. He's almost too good now that he's actually the guy making the lead groups. Like in Omloop, he made the lead group with no teammates, and then he gets worked because no one wants to work with Jasper Philipsen to the line.
Yep.
So I actually think to this race, the attackers will win, and I'm looking at a Wellens, a Jorgensen, Sturven, Kung. I'm going with Stefan Kung gets it right. Finally gets that classics dub.
I'm going to go for a hot take. I'm feeling a hot take. I'm an extremely hot take. Based on the last week's a hot take.
Milan Fretin.
I'm going for Wout van Aert.
Oh, that's not... Oh, my hot take's Milan Fretin.
This is cold take, bro.
I mean, he's a good classic sprinter. I think, Fretin, he could win, and Koffers will go all in for him. Although they got Cockart here too, which is a bit strange.
What I need to see for Wout van Aert is slightly improved positioning, which is hard. I know it's hard because if a rider has issues for positioning, you won't solve it in a week. But
no,
I would still like to see it. I also would like to see a slightly higher level if possible, because he wasn't in the first few days after coming off an altitude camp, which the first 3-4 days are usually not the greatest after an altitude camp. After that, a week after, that's when the benefits on paper start kicking in, depending on the rider, because that's individually different. So I want to see a better Wout van Aert to give me hope for Roubaix. I don't have hope for RVV.
Yeah, we're also looking to see, can Arjen Levens do it again? And him and Berkmans go for top 10. Like Lotto without the Lee, they found 2 of these skinny guys that are actually doing really, really well. But that's the men's Dwaalsdorf of Vlaanderen. There's also the women's. As I said, .pro, but we still have the big teams here. SD Works, Trek, FDJ Suez, Liv, UAE, Visma, Phoenix, etc. Pretty much all of them, frankly. And we have Kopecky here on the provisional. Voss back after her San Remo was pretty good. Balsamo. No Wiebes, so maybe Kopecky gets let off the leash here and shows what she's really got, because I feel like Kopecky's been completely shackled the last 2 races. Of her own accord, of course, but I want to see what she can do fully unleashed. And I'm picking Elisa Longo Borghini. I think she's maybe the strongest classics rider overall right now. She just crashed and has a weaker team than she did at Trek.
Oh, I like the Ciclismo pick, you know, because Longo Borghini's been super active in that way. I want to go for Kopecky.
Better than her. I'm not sure Kopecky's better than Elisa right now.
I think there's a fair argument to be made that she isn't, but I am going to go for Kopecky because it's the first race where she will 100% go for herself.
True.
Since she came off the mountain. And the same I expect with RVV, by the way. Like, it's not because Wibbes is also on the start list that she's going to look less after Wibbes than she did in the previous races, because the parkour fits Lotte Kopecky on paper a little more. So Dwars of Vlaanderen without Wibbes on the start list, I'm going for Kopecky on this one, which that's maybe a slightly Belgian pick, but she's a world champion, so what are you going to do about it?
Yep, should be interesting. Any wild cards? I'm just looking through. I mean, there's not even wild cards.
Like, if Voss shows up, she's going to be competitive.
Yeah.
Like, if she's on the start list on the day itself, I put her on a similar level as Kopecky, even after MSR.
Well, yeah, it's also not that hard a race, you know. So
yeah,
and it can be a flat sprint. I was gonna pick Letizia Borghese, but EF aren't doing it, so that kind of scuppers that pick. I wanted to pick an EF Oatly rider.
Are we underrating? I was gonna say, are we underrating Balsamo's ability to survive and therefore win in similar fashion as Trofeo Binda? But I don't think that will happen, because this time around, I'd expect Kopecky to be in the attack instead of as D-Works trying to chase down the move on the last descent.
Yeah, I don't. Because Balsama's issue here is that, yeah, she is clearly the fastest. Well, no, like Vos can give her a run for her money, but they're going to attack her. They're going to, and also, yeah, it's a harder race than Genwevelhem. And yeah, that's. I forgot who I picked. No, I picked Elisa Longo Borghini, but I also would probably pick her for Flanders right now. I think she looks incredible. We also have 2 French ChatGPT French Cup races. Paris Camembert. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not previewing them. But Briand Coquard. How is Coquard there and at Dwars d'Or? Nah, that's not possible. I like Briand Coquard, but he cannot do Dwars d'Or of Lanterne and Paris Cheese on the same race.
Mate, Paris Cheese. That's the one I don't have on my notes.
I watch these races.
Everybody loves it.
I get the Facebook stream up with the live comments from the parents and the fans, and I'm watching. I'm like, who's the next Axel Zangler? And then someone does like a punchy attack. I'm like, yes, this Saint Michel Mavic Aubert rider, he's really good.
Valentin Ferrand won
Marseille
at the start of the year, and then I didn't see him for the rest of the year.
Valentin Ferrand's a good rider. Tirreno he wasn't, but yeah. He's won Paris Cheese before.
Stop calling it Paris Cheese. I'm going to lose it. Come on, Bear. Is that... This might be very stupid, but is there also no... No, there is not. I'm not going to say it. I was going to say, is there also no beer brand called Camembert? But that's definitely not the case.
No, I don't think so.
Beer with cheese. Oh.
If anybody knows what they get, surely they get a massive block of Camembert if they win this. This is the one you want to win. I remember Ben O'Connor telling me when he won like a Jura race, I think. He said he got the best like food hall ever. Food and wine hall is unbelievable.
They get a bowl of cheese, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Are you happy now?
We should do a ranking, a tier list of cycling prizes at some point. You got the 500 kilos of salmon, Camembert cheese. I think Trobro Lyon, you get a whole pig.
Yeah.
Like a live one or what?
I don't remember. I'm going for Stian Fredheim.
He looks good. Yeah, UNOX, they're doing really well. Benji's actually looking at this. I closed off the start list 5 minutes ago. I don't give a shit.
GP Miguel Enderain, come on.
I'm going for Dylan Corkery. Don't know if he's starting, but he's that Irish fella on Saint Michel, and he attacked in the final of Denain. Looked pretty good to me. So,
are you talking about the French race, or are you talking about GP Miguel Indurain?
Oh, Indurain. He's not doing that.
That's for sure. Can't even find Indurain.
GP Indurain's a dot pro race they've tacked onto just before Basque Country. It's a very hilly circuit. They use the punchy climbs around Estella near Bilbao, I think. And yeah, last year it was won by Brandon McNulty because Van Gils couldn't descend in the wet. It's usually wet here. It's usually a very entertaining race.
Is this where Lascano crashed?
I'm not sure.
I don't remember. Someone crashed in the last kilometer of a Spanish 1.1. Might have been Circuito de Getxo last year. But yeah. I'm going to go with Mark Hirschi.
You're going with Hirschi? I'm going with Thibaut Nice.
That's good. Wow. I don't know what he's going to be like.
It's a dot pro race. He's been off all year. He'll be flying. He'll be good. And then he's also doing Basque Country. So yeah, we'll see him against Zangler and some other... Quite a few punchy sprinters there.
Now I want to hear it. You made Luke add Tour of Hellas to our notes, so you better fucking preview it.
Okay, shout out Gleb Saritsa might get his chance to sprint. Free Gleb Saritsa. He's doing Tour of Hellas, and I don't think he has to lead out Smirnov or Max Kanter. So I'm cheering on Gleb to win a stage at Hellas. I don't know how hard they are, or if there's a prologue he can win.
What is the difference between the International Tour of Hellas and the Tour of Hellas?
Yeah, there's two different... I didn't realize that. I already thought this race had happened. One's a .2, no?
I've no clue.
Yeah, because all I remember from this race is that Langolotti did it last year, and then those Austrian fellas who were like 38 on that team.
Ricardo Zoidel.
I absolutely cooked everybody on the uphill, on the mountaintop finish with good watts. I was like,
Dylan Groenewegen is on the start list.
Fuck off, he is. At Tour of Hellas.
Yes. No?
No, you're correct, but this is
And
what
Flav.
Deli should be doing Tour of Hellas. That's what I'm telling you,
What
Benji.
is
You
this?
got to broaden your horizons about their race program.
Bruh, get out of here. I'm not having this.
I'm picking Ricardo Zoidl. He's got an 18-year-old Valentin Porschacher. It's the cousin of Hermann Pernsteiner, and he'll be flying uphill. So I just made that up, that he's the cousin, but maybe he is. Volta NXT Classics, the last one-day race, and that's a hilly circuit race around Luke's house in the Netherlands somewhere, and it's 190 Ks. Thibaut Del Grosso's there with last year's winner Timo Kielich. So Alpecin have a very, very strong team, but there's also Taco van der Hoorn who'll be good here, and then Milan Menten and De Schoedner at Lotto. Kubis for Unibet, Tietema who's on fire, and Tietema Rockets are really good in this sort of race with Locks, Kopeschke and De Vries, as well as Visma with Nordhagen, Behrens and Graat and Huizing. So it should be a good race.
I'm happy for you.
Who are you picking?
I don't even know what race you're talking about.
Del Grosso. Del Grosso will win the NXT Classic. He's due.
Yes.
He's due one.
You're right. Okay, we're having that. That's the end of the podcast. Ciao.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on Wednesday with the recap of the Dwars Door of Lanterne. Until then, ciao, ciao.